With this crown, I declare you our sovereign. All hail the king! I, Esdras, saw upon the Mount Zion a great people, whom I could not number, and they all praised the Lord Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, with songs. And in the midst of them, there was a young man of a high stature, taller than all the rest, and upon every one of their heads he set crowns, and was more exalted, which I marveled at greatly. Receive this crown as a blessing from the Most High. May your reign be just and prosperous. So I asked the angel, and said, Sir, what are these? He answered and said unto me, These be they that have put off the mortal clothing, and put on the immortal, and have confessed the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. With this crown, I bestow upon you the legacy of our people. Rule wisely. Now are they crowned, and receive palms. Then said I unto the angel, What young person is it that crowneth them, and giveth them palms in their hands? So he answered and said unto me, It is the Son of Yahweh, whom they have confessed in the world. Then began I greatly to commend them that stood so stiffly for the name of the Lord. With this crown, I charge you to lead our people with wisdom and strength. All hail the new king. Hail! Then the angel said unto me, Go thy way, and tell my people what manner of things, and how great wonders of the Lord thy God thou hast seen. I now crown you king. All hail the new king. Long live the king!
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word and the truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. All right. And what I want to get into today, dealing with, James, the third chapter, a continuation, in the book of James, and it's a heavy, chapter, dealing with, disciplined speech, all right, and the character of wisdom, because as we've been awakened, to who we are. The scriptures speak about us being a noble people. Okay. And in this captivity, we become degenerate. That's why the truth, requires us to become a completely new creature. All right. To be renewed in our thinking, in our mind. Okay. Because we're being restored back to a royal etiquette. Okay. A royal etiquette. Now, when you go into the word etiquette itself, okay, let's deal with the word etiquette itself. All right, and we'll probably pull this out again. So you go into this word etiquette, it says the customary code, all right, or polite behavior in society or among members of a particular profession or group. Okay, and we're all right, the children of Israel. Okay, we was given the Most High's wisdom to govern ourselves. Okay, so we had a code, all right, a particular behavior, all right, that we were supposed to uphold. Okay, we had particular etiquette. It was a royal etiquette, man. Okay, you go into the similar words. It says protocol, polite behavior, good manners, acceptable behavior. Okay, acceptable behavior, proper behavior, code of conduct. All right, decorum, courtesy. Okay, so this is all part of who we are as a people. We had a royal etiquette, man. And we've been, manufactured. Okay, a culture. All right, over here in the West, especially here in America, to be the complete opposite. Nigga culture doesn't have etiquette. Black culture, okay, doesn't have etiquette. Okay, it's the exact opposite. To where you just say and do any goddamn thing, and that's cute amongst niggas, man. Okay, but in this truth, we're coming back to that royal etiquette, that we had going back to our forefathers, man. Some of our foremothers, man. All right, but as a people, we had, all right, royal etiquette. You see, and that's one of the things that we lost as a people, you know. So when you go, let's get the book, and we'll jump around. So when you go to the book of James. So let's go here. This is the book of James, chapter 3 and verse 1. It says, "My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation." Okay. And he was speaking of, everyone is not built, to be a teacher, and that comes with great responsibility. All right. And when you go here into the AMP, let's read in the AMP, this James 3 and 1 in the AMP. It says, "Not many of you should become teachers, serving in an official teaching capacity." All right, because everyone's not meant to teach. Everyone that has, access to a phone, okay, in the Bible shouldn't be teaching. Okay, everyone's not meant for that responsibility. Okay, it says, "My brothers." Now it says, "My brothers and sisters" in this translation, but we know this is speaking to men. All right, because there's men that have the office of teaching. Okay, now within these epistles, there's instructions, given to the men. Okay, for women. All right, when you read the epistles. Okay, but these epistles are written to men. Okay, heads of churches. Okay, it says, "For you know that we who are teachers will be judged by a higher standard, because we have assumed greater accountability and more condemnation if we teach incorrectly," man. You see, and Jake becomes a teacher. Jake jump out there to be a teacher, but still have that nigga culture mentality that they can say anything, do anything, disrespect, men who came before them, no reverence, for the elders. All right, just reckless. They're offended, they immediately speak on their offense, and, no etiquette, no discipline. You see, teaching anything, not knowing, all right, that those who, all right, jump out there as teacher take on the responsibility. Okay, that's why it's a process, dealing with GMS as a process before you become a teacher. All right, first you have to be vetted. First you have to, have to see if you're serious. All right, to the commitment. Then you begin, to read. And then eventually you begin to teach. But it's a process. Okay, and this is why a lot of men, shy away. Okay, from order and structure, and just jump out there. Okay, with no etiquette. That's why being around the camp, Coming to camp is not only that you're learning precepts, because you can learn them from the house, all right, but you're learning how men deal amongst one another. You're learning their royal etiquette, man. And we're all a work in progress, you know. But you see men who have been rehearsing for years, okay? You see, So read this again. It said, not many of you should become teachers, serving in an official teaching capacity, my brothers. For you know that we who are teachers will be judged by a higher standard, because we have assumed greater accountability and more condemnation if we teach incorrectly. Yeah, so when you go here, let's get this in the book of Luke, chapter 12. Yahweh Shai speaks on, the responsibility of those that are supposed to know. Because if you're a teacher, we're held to a completely different standard. Okay, let's go to Luke 12. All right, and 47. All right, this is the book of Luke, chapter 12, verse 47 in the KJV. It says, blessed are those servants whom the Lord, when he cometh, shall find watching. Verily I say unto you, that he shall gird himself and make them to sit down and meat, and will come forth to serve them. So when you go into being, a watchman, okay, you have to understand the Lord has left us over the church. See, we've been left with a heavy task. Okay, so the Lord wants to find us watching. All right, there's no way, that if you take this serious, that you will want to, give yourself an absence of leave. Nah, man. Once we put our hand to the plow, there's a commitment. This is a lifelong commitment. This is to death. Okay, once we cross over and make that commitment to teach, we on our watch till Yahweh Shai come back. We've committed to this thing. You see, and there's a blessing for those whom the Lord is going to find watching. Okay, because they've been tasked with a great responsibility. See, people want the perks, of being this deep teacher, this, this great orator, and see, Jake want the praise and the little groupies and the attention that comes with being a teacher without the responsibility. Okay, but this ain't what this is about. Because Yahweh Bashim Shai is truly establishing something. That's why what we teach is vital. Okay, the doctrine is crucial. Okay, it's not a light thing. Okay, misteaching the MOTB, that's not a light thing. A lot of Israelites going to be unalive based off their false teaching of the MOTB. Because if you're not being taught what it is, you're being prepped to bend the knee. Okay, which is the worst betrayal that you can do as an Israelite. Okay, Luke 12:47 says, and that servant which knew his Lord's will. All right, because you jump out there saying you're a teacher, that means that you have a higher understanding than most in Israel. Okay, hey, that means you know the will of the Lord on a different level. Okay, so it says, and that servant who knew his Lord's will and prepared not himself. Okay, you're calling yourself a teacher, but you're still moving like a nigga. You're not preparing yourself, and you damn sure not preparing anyone that's listening to you, man. Okay, neither did according to his will shall be beaten with many stripes, man. Gonna be judged harshly, because you all right, took on this mantle of being a teacher. So you're saying that on the higher level. So you're going to be judged on the higher level. Okay, it said, but he that knew not and did commit things worthy of stripes shall be beaten with few stripes. Okay, for to whomsoever much is given. Okay, for to whomsoever much is given, of him shall be much required. Okay, so if the Lord has given us, this understanding, He's given us our portion in the spirit. Well, it's because He requires much, man. This ain't for us to go debate and show random people how much we know. No, we have this wisdom to build up the elect, to build up each other, man. Iron sharpening iron, and those that are serious minded. Okay, we don't have this wisdom to go get vainglory into ourselves and be all over the place and podcasts and all this. Nah, man, we're not here for that, man. Okay, so for whomsoever much is given, and Jake want to be, and then Jake just don't want to teach. Jake want to be the deepest teacher. Jake want to be prolific. You see, Jake want to be the face. Jake want to be the logo of the wisdom. Okay, nah, man, that comes with great responsibility. Okay, so unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall much be required, and to whom men have committed much, of him will they ask, okay, the more. Okay, so the Lord requires more from the men that are on the front line. And see, that's why Jake is offended, because it takes a different type of commitment. You see, that's why certain men get offended and ring the bell, tap out, okay, because of the requirement. You see, you ain't gonna be, you can't lay up like regular men. Okay, you don't have the free time like regular men. Okay, as we're in the spiritual war. Okay, it can't be the dad of the year, husband of the year. You do what you can. Okay, but you're gonna be a missing in action a lot of times, man, especially with as much as going on right now. Okay, every brother got their office and portion, and it look different, but there's a level of commitment that's required of us all. And the scriptures say that we all will give the same diligence. So to whom much is given, much is required, man. All right. So let's go back to the book of James. And I'll get it back in the AMP. It's back in James 3:2. It says, "For we all stumble and sin in many ways. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, never saying the wrong thing, he is a perfect man, fully developing character without serious flaws, able to bridle his whole body and rein in his entire nature, taming his human faults and weaknesses." Okay, so James is, speaking to the church from a perspective like, look, no one's going to be perfect in their speech. We have slip ups. That's why we have to, times we have to make correction videos. Okay, but the intent, is always to teach sound doctrine and to be on point. Okay, we have, slip of the tongue, misinterpret something. Okay, but the responsible thing to do is what? To make that correction. Okay, so we all a work in progress. All right, but what James is going to go into, is that you shouldn't be reckless with with your tongue. You should have a discipline on your tongue. Okay, so we're all imperfect. Okay, but there's not a green light to be reckless. You see, so you go read on. It says, now, if we put bits into the horse's mouth to make them obey us, we guide their whole body as well. And look at ships, even though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are still directed by a very small rudder wherever the impulse of the helmsman determines. All right. In the same sense, the tongue is a small part of the body, and yet it boasts of great things. See by comparison how great a forest is set on fire by a small spark. Okay, and the tongue is in a sense a fire, the very world of injustice and unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members as that which contaminates the entire body and sets on fire the course of life, the cycle of man's existence, and itself set on fire by hell. Okay, so he's going into how the tongue, is a small member of the body, but it can stir up the most mess. Okay, the power of the tongue, and that's why the tongue has to be disciplined. You see, the tongue has to be disciplined. We all come from a culture, especially social media, has intensified to where people just press record and say and do anything. Okay, and that's off. Okay, there's a difference between misspeaking, all right, and being reckless, saying anything, teaching anything. See, Jake don't know how dangerous it is for them to be teaching anything. Okay, just remixing the whole doctrine. Jake don't understand how dangerous that is, man, for them and for the people that's listening. Okay, you've been listening to a false prophet for years, man. This man is destroying. Okay, he's destroying you, man. Okay, controversy, unnecessary controversy, man. Jake, even now, this latest incident, man, Jake just couldn't control his mouth. Okay, because not only the truth teaching us, what to speak, but it's teaching us when to speak, to be selective, be conservative with our speech. Okay, and we're going to get some precepts to go into that. Now, I want to get a backdrop, and then we'll get a few precepts as well. Okay, because with the tongue can spark up a lot of chaos, man. Every war that's been fought started with a conversation, man. Okay, a lot of people dead in prison because of the tongue. Okay, conversation. You see, so the tongue is a powerful thing. Okay, and it has a right to be bridled. Okay, and it goes back to royal etiquette. So let's go here. So I looked it up real quick, just the overview. All right, so I asked about backbiting in the church. Okay, so yeah, so this is a portion of the book of James, chapter 3, overview dealing with the backbite. It says, yes, very likely. It said James doesn't use the word backbite, but his language strongly suggests gossip, slander, harsh criticism, divisive speech, prideful teaching, and argument. So, slander. And that's the thing, like these guys that call us, make these false, accusations, call us rapists and PDF files. And they're doing that with the intent of harm. You see, the Lord just allowed Esau to really, take up those accusations, man. That would do a lot of harm to people, man. That's why in the ancient world, you couldn't just call a woman a whore that wasn't a whore. You say that and it was proven that she wasn't a whore, man, hey, you will be beaten. Okay? You will be beaten, man, because you can do a lot of damage to a man's house with that false accusation, man. Okay? Certain brothers, have lost, jobs. That's what the Lord wanted. Those brothers, had to go through that. But it was based off false slander, man. It was based off slander and accusations, man. And Jake still got to pay for that. You see, but when these guys make these certain slanders, just to put that out there, they do that with the intent of harm. If they could, they would destroy us, our families. They want us to be harmed when they make those accusations. They're not just randomly, because that's not no light thing to say about someone, man. Okay, to put that out there. So it says, slander. Let me go back. It says early in the letter, James already addresses quarreling and conflict, favoritism, complaining against one another. So chapter 3 fits into a larger picture of relational sin within the church, especially sins of speech that were damaging unity and witnesses, man. There's gossiping and having cliques, within the camp, and you know, Jake talking to other camps about what's going on in camp, doing too much, man. Okay? Doing too much. Nah, man, we have to, let's say, not only be mindful of what we're teaching, but also, okay, when we're speaking, man, what we're speaking. Being selective, you see, and you got some precepts for that, man. We have to be selective with our speech, man. Knowing when, nothing needs to be said. Okay, it says, let me jump down. I got a few precepts. Yep. So this Proverbs 10:9 says, when words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent. Okay, and we're learning not to talk as much. Because when you just like to talk to hear yourself talking, it gets to a point to where, you're just trying to fill in blanks. So you get to saying anything, man. We're learning to become more intentional. Some brothers are long-winded, I know I'm long-winded. Okay, and what I have to monitor is to make sure I'm being intentional, not just talking just to talk. Because a lot of talking, that increase, okay, misspeaking. That increase, revealing something that didn't need to be revealed. You see? So it says, when words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lip is prudent, man. So even when we speak, because we're teachers, okay, we have to be intentional, man. Speaking to myself, first and foremost. Okay, like I say, some brothers are more long-winded than others, but we want to make sure that we're gonna be long-winded, that we're speaking with intention, and what we're saying is potent. Okay, and it says, Proverbs 18:21, it said, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Okay, because there's certain instances that we can get into, and according to how we maneuver what we say next, there are certain moments to, depending on what we say next in the situation and how we say it can go in a certain way. So this wisdom is giving us discernment, man, not only just to teach this word, but to interact in this world. Okay, because we come from a culture where it's cool to just pop off, say anything, do anything, no regard, just just out there. Okay, this is a culture where disrespect is cute. You see, just saying anything to anybody, crash out. Nah, man, it's a lot of people that they have crashed out through their speech. Okay, and the truth is teaching us to be the opposite. That's why you go Proverbs 15:1. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Okay, so because with our speech we can control situations. And one thing about this wisdom activates true power, to where you're able to control the direction of situations through speech. through the power we have by Shema Shai. See, we have this wisdom to apply it real time, on and off camera. Okay? And there's certain situations, our reaction, okay, could cause unnecessary strife, man. Okay? So let's jump down. I think it's one more. Yep. Psalms 141:3. It says, set a guard, O Lord Yahweh by Shema Shai, over my mouth. Keep watch over the doors of my lips. Okay? You see? So we have to have a guard over our mouth. You know, and it's something that we got to rehearse. You know, we have to, rehearse it in our mind. Okay, do I need to speak on this? Do I need to be quiet on this? Even at camp, sometimes the point been made. Let the precepts flow. Okay, these things have to be rehearsed. You see? So setting the guard over our mouth is something that has to be rehearsed, man. We have to consciously rehearse that. Become skillful at on camera and off camera. You see? Determining, what needs to be said and what not. Okay? When to say it, when to be silent. That's a skill that we're developing, man. It's part of royal etiquette. Okay? Let's go here. I believe. All right, so let's go here to the book of Sirach. All right. So let's go to the book of Sirach, chapter 19, and start at verse 6. It says, he that can rule his tongue shall live without strife. Okay, and he that hated Babylon shall have less evil, man. Stay out the way. Stop trying to be involved in everything. Stop trying to know everything, man. It don't have nothing to do with you, man. We shouldn't want to know things that have nothing to do with us, man. Other people's business and their circumstances. If it has nothing to do with us, okay. If it's nothing that we need to know, okay, let it be. Trying to investigate and see what's going on with this and that. And nah, man, who can rule his tongue, live without strife. Not always in the mix of something. With the he said, she said. Okay? And this is what we're maturing into royal etiquette, man. Okay? And I say this is the culture of our people, especially amongst the Southern Kingdom, which is, under the matriarch where you just gossiping. That's niggas' life is gossip. That's why a lot of these camps have these following. You have these guys that make these 3-4 hour videos about gossip, revealing this person, exposing this person, man. I don't want to know all that about them niggas, man. We'll address the doctrine. Certain things come out, it's a shame for them niggas, man. But living just to hear, about them niggas' personal lives, man, we not here for that, man. Okay? Always trying to be in the mix, wanting to know everything, listening. You got some Jake that just get quiet. They be listening, trying to pick up everything, man. Everything ain't for everybody to know. And it says, rehearse not, verse 7, rehearse not unto another that which is told unto thee, and thou shalt fare never the worse, man. And, you're going to be around particular things. You're going to see particular things, man. Okay? We're not here to be human tape recorders, man, to everything that we hear and see. All right? We have to, find an outlet. We got to let it go somewhere, man. Okay? Nah, man, we got to learn how to be able to see things, hear things, all right, know it, and go from there. Some things just need to be completely deleted that, we hear and see that just need to be disregarded. You got Jake to just sit there and hold on to every moment, every little flaw, everything. So when things go bad, they just got this archive, okay, of your faults, a highlight of your faults, man. Okay, they're just sitting around brothers just collecting the archive of all brothers' shortcomings. So if anything go bad, they just bring that out. You see, it says whether it be friend or foe, talk not of other men's lives, and if thou canst without offense, reveal them not, man. So even if it's a friend or foe, we're not here to discuss, men's personal matters, man. Okay, even if it's someone that we disagree with, man, their personal matters. We're not here to investigate that. The Lord calls certain things to come out, let's say, to shame them guys, man. But even then, it's still, there's still another highlight of why we're here. Okay, we don't live for the gospel, man. Okay, and that's for the women. You see, he said, "For he heard and observed thee, and when time cometh, he will hate thee. If thou hast heard a word, let it die with thee, and be bold; it will not burst thee." Okay, and there's many certain things that we see, certain flaws, or certain conversations we hear. It's not for us to run and tell. Okay, it's not for us to become a newspaper, man, a blog, a walking blog for the latest happenings, man. Okay, or you might see something, as a younger brother, you might be around certain men and see things that ain't for you just to go run with. Okay, learn how to let things die. Okay, that you see and hear. Learn how to delete things and disregard things. Okay, and keep it pushing. Okay, it said a fool travaileth with a word. All right, as a woman in labor of a child. They gotta let it out. A fool is the mind of a fool to where they feel like they just gotta say this and say what they seen, and talking to their woman and talking to their family and talking to, they just gotta say something to somebody. Nah, man, it's off. You see, and we're learning not to be like that. Okay, and as we mature, we should become skillful in these things, man. Okay, this is Sirach 25. It said, there is one that keepeth silence and is found wise, and another by much babbling becoming hateful, man. Okay, so silence is a powerful thing in this society. Silence, is weak and whatever. All right, but silence is a powerful thing at times. Okay, being silent in a lot of situations is the wisest thing to do. Have discernment. There's a time to speak and there's a time to be silent. And someone that's just too long-winded, that just, hey, nobody, hey, look, nobody like nobody that talk too goddamn much, man. Okay, and just that forever just babbling and babbling and going and going, and we have to catch ourselves, men. Be considerate too. We have to be considerate of people's time. Every conversation doesn't have to be, this super deep, 3 hour. Some brothers, they got that they link, and they spirit just, and it's all in the spirit. Okay, and then there's a time to be, hey, say what need to be said. Keep it moving, not because, you gotta look at the situation. We gotta look at the situation. Is it time to open up and get into this, or can this wait, for a better setting? And then we can, so the timing of things, man. I say we just don't want to become these too talkative. Okay, it says some man holding his tongue because he have not to answer, and some keep his silence, knowing his time. It's a thing of timing. Okay, every point don't gotta come out that's in your mind. Save it for a video, save it for a personal video. Let the spirit flow. You see? So it's about timing. It says a wise man will hold his tongue till he see opportunity, but a babbler and a fool will regard no time, man, just talking to be heard. Not considering, some people just talking. You can tell that nothing matters on earth. You see, like the earth stops. It's like the earth is on pause as they're talking. Nah, man, you gotta, be mindful. And say, be mindful and considerate of brother's time. Okay, verse 8, it says, he that useth many words shall be abhorred, avoided, and he that taketh to himself authority therein shall be hated. Okay, so now, man, the royal etiquette, okay, of speech, a disciplined speech. Okay, this is a major thing in the truth that we have to mature in. Speaking to myself, first and foremost. Okay, I'll say some brothers are naturally, going to be long-winded, but even in that, it needs to be intentional. Okay, so let's go here. Let's go back to the book of James, chapter 3, and verse 7. It said, for every species of beasts and birds, of reptiles and sea creatures is tamed and has been tamed by the human race, but no one can tame the human tongue. It is restless, evil, undisciplined, unstable, full of deadly poison. With it we bless, all right, our Lord and Father, and with it we curse men who have been made in the likeness, okay, of the Most High. Okay, because you have Jake, they open up, give all praises, then go straight to line. Straight to slander, straight to teaching false doctrine. Okay, out of the same mouth, give praises and then go irate. You see, out of the same mouth come both blessing and cursing. These things, my brothers, should not be this way, for we have a moral obligation to speak in a manner that reflects our fear of the Most High and profound respect for his precepts, man. Okay, and Jacob give all praises and completely operate without no fear. Down what the scriptures say, they just, do what they want to do. Okay, we should be a reflection, okay, of the wisdom of Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai. And there should be a reverence and a fear. There should be things that you just shouldn't be said. There's certain things that these men say, and you like, now I wouldn't even think to say nothing like that. I couldn't even formulate those words, fix my mouth to say, things that Jake be saying. You be like, damn. And Jake could just say and do anything. Saying that you already got the mark. How many people that was ruined by that? And if you're ruined by these particular things, is meant. Okay, we're just expressing how not to be. Okay, Lord we are those examples of how to be. Okay, but we're just going into how not to be, man. It said, does a spring, all right, send out from the same opening both fresh and bitter water? Can a fig tree, my brothers, produce olives, or grapevines produce figs? Nor can salt water produce, all right, the fresh. Okay? And that's why Yahweh Shai said it's not what goes into a man what defiles him, because they was eating lawful food but with unwashed hands. Okay? The disciples. But it said what comes out. Okay? So you see what comes out of these men, what they say and what they do. Okay? It shows who they are. Okay? Scriptures go into that. A man's reasoning. That's who he is, his reasoning. The fact that they would teach that, they would do that, they would say that. Okay? The reasoning, that's the trial of men. A man that will tell you the word, all right, the Bible is not the word of God, but the word of God is in the Bible. That's show you who he is. That's his reasoning. Okay, all nations can make it. That's that's their reasoning. The fact that they'll say that and stand on that and double down on that shows you their reasoning. That's their trial. Okay, they showed you everything you need to know that they're off. John the Baptist is not in the truth, man. And these men constantly show you their reasoning. That's why there's going to be no excuse for anyone to follow these men to their destruction, man. Okay, because they've revealed their reasoning over and over again by what they've said, what they've done. Okay, it says, "Who among you is wise and intelligent? Let him, all right, by his good conduct, show his good deeds, all right, with the gentleness and humility of true wisdom." You know, so going back into that, all right, the trial of men, I gotta get that. You know, we are already in Sirach, so let's get it. Sirach 27. All right, this is the book of Sirach 27. All right, in 5 it says, "The furnace proveth the potter's vessel, so the trial of man is in his reasoning." Okay, so man's trial is in his reasoning, man. Okay, and the Lord has showed over and over again the reasoning of these men, and it's off. Okay, they're off vessels. They're not fit to be any leaders in any capacity, man. The way that these men speak and move. Okay, he said, "The fruit declare if the tree has been dressed, so is the utterance, okay, of the conceit in the heart of man." Okay, the fact that you will push that slander, calling us grapists and PDF file. Okay, the fact that you even push that shows who you are. Okay, that you would put your brothers, okay, in harm's way over nothing. You know, because it was up to them. We'll be all charged with that. You know, families ruined, everything. You see? Verse 7 said, "Praise no man before thou hearest him speak, for this is the trial of men." Okay? And then even if men, you know, play humble and, you know, who they truly are always comes out, man. You listen to a nigga long enough, man, and who they are always seeps through. All right? Same thing with a woman. You listen to her long enough and who she really is eventually seeps through. Okay, and this is why we should, and this is another thing why we should do more listening. You know, listening. So that's why silence is powerful, because you can listen, you can pick up. So you talking so goddamn much, you missing all the red flags. You know, because you just trying to talk so goddamn much. You see, but now as we're becoming judges, hey, we're learning to listen. Okay, but that's the trial of man. You know, it's in his speech. Really listen to what he's saying. When we go into Esau and, you know, as we're watching and listening to these videos and, you know, going to documentaries, you listen to what's being said. It's like, damn, this nigga telling you what he up to. He's showing you what he's about. He's showing you what's next. You know, so as judges, we're you know, we investigate. Hey, we're listening most of the time, man. You know, as we're being groomed to be judges, we're listening and analyzing and dissecting and, you know, putting this piece with that piece and really seeing, okay, this is, you see, judging the matter. Okay, so let's go back James 3 and 3 and 14 says, but if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambitions in your hearts, do not be arrogant. It says, and as a result, be in defiance of the truth. Okay? Because they'll push you in defiance of the truth. That selfish ambition, man. And these guys, they have all this selfish ambition to be seen, to be popular, you know, they become opposition to the truth. They become in defiance to the truth because it becomes about them and their status. Okay? It says this superficial wisdom is not that which comes from above, but is earthly, secular, natural, unspiritual, even demonic. Okay? And you see these men are just waxing worse and worse. Okay? And selfish ambition, just wanting to be heard, just wanting to be seen. Okay? Now these men have become earthly. Now they have a secular, a worldly view of the scriptures. To where they don't mind just dismissing whole books. That's a worldly mindset, to dismiss a whole book in the Bible. Okay, they're unspiritual, man. You know, even the money, the left hand. Okay, it says, for where jealousy and selfish ambition exists, there is disorder, unrest, rebellion. This is what we're seeing. And expect this to uptick going into this new year, so-called new year. Okay, more unrest and rebellion. Okay, amongst those that know that they're Israelites, man. And everything, all right, it says in every evil thing and morally decaying, degrading practice, but the wisdom from above is first pure, morally and spiritually undefiled. Then, okay, then peace loving, courteous, considerate, gentle, reasonable, and willing to listen, full of compassion and good fruits. It says it's unwavering, without self-righteous hypocrisy and self, all right, serving guile. Okay, so these are the characteristics of what? True wisdom, man. Okay, true wisdom doesn't have to have a spotlight. Okay, true wisdom isn't there to, you know, to scroll you and be condescending and be praised. True wisdom puts us in the spirit of a servant. Okay, being mindful how we, you know, because even the fear of the Lord, we're mindful how, you know, we deal with the body, how we deal with brothers, you know, those that listen, we're mindful, considerate, okay, reasonable, understanding, you know, certain situation Jake be in, okay, even so, you know, certain situation Eve be in, like the wisdom makes us reasonable, okay. You see, so when you go into the characteristics of wisdom, read it again, say, but the wisdom from above is first pure, okay, with no intent to deceive. You see, the men whom the Lord has, you know, allotted to teach his word in truth and sincerity, it says there's no guile, there's no intent to deceive. The motives are pure, to the edification of the church. Okay, we don't want your money, we don't need your praise, we don't, you know, any of that. Your edification is the intent. Your understanding what you're a part of is the intent. Understanding your purpose, and, you know, understanding your house shot, that's the intent. Okay, it says then peace loving. We not here for the mess, man. We not here just keeping up mess, man. You see, true wisdom is peace loving, man. Getting to the bottom of this. That's the reason you have counsels and rebuke go out, is to get back to peace. Okay, wisdom don't thrive off the gossip and the he say she's there. Oh man, because that's very counterproductive to be stuck in that mode about some BS and gossip all the time, man. Okay, he said, then peace loving, courteous, considerate, gentle, reasonable, and willing to listen, full of compassion, okay, and good fruits. It is unwavering, okay, and that's why you get the same doctrine and the same message, same consistency, man. You know, which is rooting, which has us rooted in belief, because we firmly believe, okay, we understand what we believe. It's hard to have faith when you don't understand. Okay, the doctrine is changing. There's no way you can have faith. Okay, the doctrine is subject to change. Okay, based on the nigga emotions and trying to be deep and prolific. Okay, there's no way, if you're following, that you can be rooted in faith. You see, so this doctrine is unwavering, which has our faith unwavering, man. Abaratazah, all right, without self-righteous hypocrisy, all right, and self-serving guile, and the seed whose fruit is righteous, all right, and the seed whose fruit is righteousness, spiritually maturity, is sown in peace by those who make peace by actively encouraging goodwill between individuals, man. Okay, so you have, those, okay, that are just wild, loose cannons out here saying and doing anything, and you have those who are really operating with the wisdom from on high, that's maturing in the spirit. Okay, because edification brings peace, man. Understanding on certain matters, on how to move, certain things of the scriptures, and learning how to move in this world. Okay, that brings peace. When you use wisdom to bring a solution to the matter, all right, it creates peace, man. Okay, true wisdom brings peace, not the chaos, man. Okay, so that was the point. Just wanted to tap in. Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters edified. Till next time, I say shalom, on Yashalom, a Bible ball soon, shalom.